Oh, don't do anime videos, it's going to mess up your algorithm. Honestly, I don't think I benefit from it in any way. Well, you'll probably be shocked to know that I also enjoy some anime every now and then, but I do have a bias for the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Of course, for some of us that were kids back then, only very rarely we got to enjoy the exact same shows as in Japan because production companies importing them really needed to cut them, chop them, and Frankenstein them together so they could follow whatever rules American TV needed them to. The most famous cases are of course series like Robotech or Voltron, but we are here to talk about their less successful brother, Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, or Star Musketeer Bismark, made by Studio Pierrot in 1984. Saber Rider was far and away one of my favorites growing up, so I always been a little bummed it didn't enjoy the fame and respect other series got. But I do hear it's pretty big in Germany, like David Hasselhoff. This is all a blessing in disguise. Can you imagine a Netflix adaptation? Ugh. I'm also extremely thankful that there really wasn't any drama involved in the production of the show, so that significantly cuts down on investigative homework for me. There is, however, a Kickstarter game with the license that went silent in 2018, and by now is considered completely dead. I couldn't find any real information if they found themselves on some kind of legal trouble or they simply ran away with the money. If you're good enough with your searching, you can still find a very early demo of the game. It's obviously modeled after Contra, but worse. I got strong Alien Wars vibes playing this. The demo uses a lot of the TV show's assets. The whole thing just sounds a little suspicious if you ask me. The reason I'm making this, besides me being very nostalgic for the American cut of the show, is because I've never actually sat down and watched the original all the way through, and also because the amount of cuts and edits is significant and it's interesting to see what the differences are. There were 6 episodes made from nothing that are exclusive to the American version, and 5 Japanese episodes that were completely cut from the Western release. And on top of all that, the American version completely scrambled the episode order around, and this gave me a huge headache, but thankfully most episodes are very basic Monster of the Week, so it doesn't matter too much in what order they are seen. And I almost forgot to mention this, but Discotheque Media did release Bismark back in February of 2025, but apparently it's really difficult to get your hands on one of these Blu-rays. A lot of my footage comes from the original DVD release from many years ago, even if some episodes look like dog water, but I'll do what I can. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to use the Japanese version as a base, give a little summary and comment on every episode, pointing out some of the changes. Of course, not every episode is getting a complete overview, there are over 50 of them and I don't want to be here all day. I'm probably going to use Japanese and American names interchangeably. Sometimes I'll say Saber, sometimes I'll say Richard, sometimes Bill and sometimes Colt, and so on. I'm going to do my best to keep everything properly labeled to avoid confusion. Having said all that, let's begin. In the Japanese version, the episode starts with the Earth military officers discussing the state of the world with some action footage. But this is replaced with narration by Saber and a different kind of action footage. Of course, they probably thought military men talking would be too boring for the kids, and showing the bad guys winning might be too scary, maybe. The American version loves to do this. Most of the changes are just narration altering what actually happens. We are quickly introduced to Marianne, one of the fierce waifus in my life. Hey, I was like 6. If anything, she was grooming me. Then we'll cut to Shinji Ikari. A mecha pilot named Shinji? That's never going to work. Anyways, Shinji is running a race and gets briefly confronted by Bill. the bounty hunter, but Shinji manages to win the race anyway. In another part of town, a mugging is quickly resolved by Richard, or Saber. In case you haven't figured it out yet, the major change of the American show is that Saber is not the protagonist. That's why we have so much inserted dialogue and reused animation just to hype Saber up.
It could only be one person.
It has to be the legendary
Saber Rider.
Eventually, Richard and Shinji are about to fight for a hotel room, but Bill interrupts and tries to get his bounty. This is all broken up by a farmer with a shotgun, but don't worry, in the American version he just invited his daughter to a dance. What a wholesome boy. In the next scene, Bill accidentally hears an enemy spy planning an attack on a nearby garrison and quickly enters the room and shoots him. You see, in the Japanese version, Bill is there to bring Shinji in because he ran away from the army. However, in the American version, everyone except Shinji is there to supposedly find the spy. Not gonna lie, the framing of the American version makes more sense. In the Japanese version, everything feels like a big coincidence. Well, the spy dies, and Saber Rider viewers know that the bad guys are referred to as vapor beings because when they die, they vaporize and go to their home dimension. In the Japanese version, they just die. They still disappear into a harmless pile of goo. There is no blood, there is no body, it's already innocent enough. Anything to avoid mentioning death, I suppose. Like on the Conan cartoon, he's not allowed to cut anyone, just lightly tap them to make them return to their home dimension. Also, this guy, let me tell you about this guy. In the American version, he gets upgraded from a random NPC that's supposed to die into a secondary antagonist. We'll see him again, but only on the America exclusive episodes. All the boys go to help the garrison, but they don't go together. This doesn't make sense on either version. After some nice shooting action, Marian arrives on the Bismark, and all the boys immediately get in the robot with no questions asked. After a short bit, we get a robot transformation sequence. The Japanese one is shorter, but the American one is way more hype.
power stride and ready to ride.
Anyway, after a brief fight with the giant enemy mecha, Bismarck uses his fuck you cannons and wins the fight. This is going to happen a lot, so get used to it. After the battle, everyone becomes part of the Bismarck team without any complications whatsoever. This ends episode 1. Next, there will be an American exclusive 2-parter. It starts with a space battle and a lot more narration. You can always tell you're watching an American-produced episode because of the ever so slightly off-model faces and details like April wearing lipstick. While this battle is fun enough, it makes the mistake of both introducing Gatler without his helmet and sending him to his home dimension shortly after. It also introduces the concept that Outriders can just choose to self-vaporize, which is really inconsistent with the rest of the show. Gatler is one of the main enemies of the first half of the series, and this really undercuts him as a credible antagonist. But you could argue that that was the point. In these more innocent times, bad guys are not allowed to be too bad. And talking about undercutting your bad guys, we also get introduced to Nemesis, the final boss, and his motivation is that he's bored.
Now in the Star Sheriff dimension, they have fun. But we can't have fun because we don't know how.
In the original, the Deathkula, that's a faction name, I should have said it earlier. The Deathkula are an invasion force from deep space running away from their dying home planet. It might not be the most original thing, even for the time, but comparing that to being bored, well, I don't know about that. Afterwards, the group gets summoned to Cavalry Command headquarters. Really, boys? That's the whole base? There are McDonald's bigger than this. Anyway, one thing that really jumps at you from the American episodes is that they really want to double down on the Space Cowboys theme by inserting more Western-sounding names, locales, and characters. They also want to sell the illusion that this is all happening on a grand galactic scale. My theory is that they wanted to have some room to annex another show, just in case Saber Rider managed to reach Voltron levels of popularity, which never happened. Next, the team is sent to teach some lessons to new recruits, and this is when the character of Jesse Blue is introduced. This is another of the show's big changes. In the original, this character is just another alien that fulfills the trope of the final boss right-hand man, that is more capable and cunning than others. In here, our boy Jesse spars with April in a self-defense class and gets the biggest case of one-nighties that I have ever seen. Shortly after, the group is called to fight some common Western-style bandits that are led by the Wolfman from 1941. Remember how I said they wanted the show to happen in a bigger galaxy? I guess this vision also made them insert random aliens. At the end, the bandits run away and Jesse arrives too late to try and impress. Instead, he ends up feeling really jealous of Saber and April. Next episode, there's a formal party and Jesse shoots his shot, but things predictably go very wrong, and he ends up being laughed at by his peers and reprimanded by his teachers. Then he goes from red pill to black pill in 10 seconds flat and leaves everything behind. Instead of starting a podcast or something, Jesse goes to the bandit hideout to join them, and there's another furry alien in there. The bandits take Jesse in and use his information to raid the base and steal plenty of weapons and explosives. The good guys give chase, but Jesse manages to plant a bomb inside the Bismark. He soon regrets it after he realizes that April is still inside, so he pleads with Saber to save everyone, and he does. At the episode's end, Jesse becomes a wanted man and he rides away, planning revenge. Not going to lie, trying to turn Jesse from a somewhat generic right-hand man into a more personal, revenge-seeking antagonist sounds good, but we'll see if they can pull it off. Now, this episode is unremarkable, but it has a few nice examples of where the minds of the American producers were when cutting and altering content. At the start, in the Japanese version, the group quickly decides to make Shinji the leader, simply because he's the one controlling the most important part of the Bismarck. In the US version, this section just uses filler dialogue. Later, when the team is ambushed, the Japanese version has an extended sequence of Bill trying to flirt with Marianne, which of course gets significantly cut and with altered dialogue. The US version also cuts this single frame of Shinji looking silly when he loses his cover. They just don't share the same sense of humor, I guess. Another cut is this shot of Saber cutting a guy in the head. You know, aliens turn into goop only when they die, so this implies that he died really slowly. Later, the Japanese version sets up a little bit of character building by showing Richard's and Bill's clashing personalities. The American dialogue does not do that very well because they have to maintain the illusion that Saber is the leader of the group. After the sequence where Bill is trapped in the small canyon and is saved by the little lizard, there is a mecha fight where they actually shoot the lava to burn the enemy. A little overcomplicated, but it makes for a nice visual. Both versions kept it the same. At the end, Bill lets the lizard he captured at the start of the episode go, in what I think is a really weak thematic move. Okay, let's speed things up a little bit until I deem it necessary to go into a little more detail. The Bismark team befriends a kid looking to rescue his village and avenge his parents. Despite protesting, they take the kid into a mine where everyone is being forced to work. Lots of dead civilians on this one that the US version obviously cuts. At the end, the kid ends up saving the day, and the American version uses their voiceover trick to make us think his parents are still alive.
I found my mom and dad. They escaped with the others. I found my mom and dad. They escaped with the others.
In this episode, the boys have to go undercover as enforcers for a mining company. There's a Chuck Norris-style bar fight and a little bit of intrigue, which is a nice change of pace. This is also my favorite case of the narrator trying to fix a character's death.
Our inside man. It didn't take him long to recover.
Our boy Gatler stands before the Führer. Yeah, it says it right there. Here is when the bad guys hear for the first time about the existence of the Bismarck, and then launch a full attack against them. This is the first time where the heroes have to sweat a little. Also, Gatler has a nice duel with Shinji. It was a relief to see that the bad guys are not completely incompetent, except that the American version insists on making Nemesis sound like a big goof.
Today I found a flower blooming in my rock garden.
While the team is relaxing in town, a civilian plane is attacked and only a single survivor remains. The girl seems to have memory loss, and Bill falls in love so bad that he starts to neglect work. Predictably, she turns out to be a Deathkula assassin, and Bill is saved by the doctor's dog at the last second. Let that be a lesson to all sensitive young men out there. That girl you like might be Boba Fett in disguise trying to shoot you in the heart. Don't worry, the dog survives in the American version. The team has to protect a scientist and his secret information, but the Deathkula attack the train he's on and don't have a stormtrooper aim when firing at civilians. The doctor dies during the attack and everyone goes after his daughter. She hates her father at first, but changes her mind. With the information, Bismarck blows the secret base up. How did Marianne survive this anyway? Call me whatever you want, but unexplained stuff really grinds my gears. After this lesson about dead families, April has a cute moment reconnecting with her father.
They're out cold.
A herd of really overpowered robot horses absolutely tears through a town, leaving no survivors. When investigating, the Bismarck team finds an old man that can seemingly pacify the horses with his music. The old man was a red herring and it's actually Deathkula building and controlling the horses in secret. During the final battle, the horses seem to have the team pinned down. I really hope they use this technology in another episode or I'm going to be mad. Things seem to be going badly, but the magical banjo music distracts the main horse just enough for the good guys to score the win. The Bismarck tracks a new enemy base hidden near a dam. A direct assault results in heavy damage, but Shinji gets the idea to flood the base by opening the dam. One of the workers is Shinji's former senpai, and he doesn't agree with that idea very much. But after seeing all his co-workers die, and seeing the Bismarck struggling with a giant mecha underwater, he changes his mind and helps point out the weakness in the structure. With that, the base is destroyed and the incoming fleet is stopped, for now. This is the start of a three-parter. The team is on a diplomatic mission in the eastern district of Ganymede, but of course, the leader won't accept an alliance. There is some lore about what happened during the initial assault of the Deathkula, and the team gets detained. We also get some more lore about the death of Shinji's father, who was part of the same army. Later, the bad guys ambush the general's forces, and the Bismarck team disobeys orders to fight the giant mecha. Even after the Bismarck wins the fight during the sandstorm, the general still refuses to cooperate. After a friendly shooting competition between Bill and the captain, General Doms takes the team and shows them his battlecruiser, the Phoenix. Shortly after, he takes his fleet to battle, and at the same time the Bismarck receives an SOS. Predictably, this is another ambush. How many of these are going to happen, I wonder? The Bismarck is grounded, so it's up to the general's ship to fight Cutler's fleet. Both fleets clash, but the general starts losing, and the boys infiltrate Gatler's battleship to blow it up from the inside. Not gonna lie, I kinda rolled my eyes at the hero surviving this. Gatler too, he just walks away like he's totally aware of his plot armor. Back at the base, the general invites everyone to a Christmas party and finally accepts to join the alliance. We also get more context about Shinji's father and how he died. The American version once again tries to dodge the subject of death.
We believe his ship was propelled into the vapor zone. We still hope that he may someday return. We believe his ship was propelled into the vapor zone. We still hope that he may someday return.
In this episode, the team has to escort a drug runner so he can be interrogated. Of course, the American version changes this via dialogue to avoid any reference to drugs. Bill and Shinji go to retrieve him, but they find Deathkula attacks pretty much at every stage of this escort quest. After getting attacked by a tornado, they are forced to continue on foot. As soon as there's an opportunity, Kid steals Bill's gun and forces Shinji to have a Western-style duel. Just as the tornado approaches again, the Bismarck appears to save everyone. The tornado was another giant mecha, but it's no problem for the fuck you cannons. At the end, the Shinigami Kid gives up the info voluntarily, but is not very repentant, unlike the American version. This American exclusive episode happens on Earth. While patrolling, Saber receives a message from his parents, and he decides to go alone, but April is not far behind. Are they trying to set them up as a couple? That's gonna get awkward later.
He was lonely for Steed.
They are received by Saber's parents, who seem to be alright, and invite them for some tea. And in here you actually discover that Ryder is their legit last name? A detail that I didn't remember, and it's really funny now.
I do hope you forgive me, dear.
Of course he does, Mrs. Ryder.
It's not long before Saber feels something suspicious is going on. That night, he's attacked by someone in armor, and he defeats it by lightly touching him with fire. Well, I guess that's a new rule now. Also, April sleeps in full battle armor, and they are totally trying to set up a romance. Oh boy.
I've got to go.
Cute. Real classy move, Saber.
Shortly after, the fake parents drop the charade and there's some fighting. They even torture the fake mom, and it's creepier than any kill we have seen thus far. With the location, Saber goes to rescue his parents with the help of the Scottish army, wearing traditional clothes. Alright, I guess. Note that the main bad guy of this episode is Banquo, the NPC from episode 1. Not only do they reuse him a lot, they even use the white eyes as the main aesthetic for all the bad guys. Well, with the help of the Scottish superpower of beating space-age tech with arrows and swords, and after rescuing Saber's parents, the good guys win the day. The guys find a little kid and take him home to his dad that is living in the mountains. After, the team helps a nearby settlement, and I'm really noticing the reused animation. It's not that big of a deal yet, but it might become one. Shinji goes back to the house to convince the family to move into a safer area, but nearby Deathkula soldiers kidnap the kid. The dad is a retired gunslinger that is losing his eyesight, but he goes to rescue his son anyway. During the rescue, he gets his hero moment. Nice kill animation, by the way. After it's all over, the father burns his whole house and accepts to return to the city to give his son a normal life. In this episode, the team is on a New Year's break at a ski resort. It takes no time for Bill to fall in love again. They befriend the girl and her brother and everything seems to be alright, until the silly alien invader skiing team shows up. April and the little kid are captured. The Deathkula officer in charge requests Bill and only Bill to come for the rescue. The officer appears to be honorable and they start fighting. Meanwhile, the rest try to save the hostages. The big reveal is that the officer is the brother of Ellis, the girl from episode 6, and then all that potential drama is wasted because he just dies anyway. The American version completely deletes this narrative and also uses this vaporized visual effect to cover the death up. While investigating unusual volcanic activity, the team goes to a Scottish-style castle in the middle of the mountains to try and find out what is happening, but the Baron rejects every single attempt, even after being saved. Richard realizes that there's an underground lake right under the castle that the Deathkula want, but the Baron turns violent after being confronted and starts a sword fight. Meanwhile, outside, there's already a volcanic eruption and the Bismarck fights a lava-based mecha. After losing the fight, the Baron repents and blows up away into the lake, giving room for the Bismarck to win. Once again, Bill manages to fall in love with another blonde, and this time he escorts her to a faraway isolated village where it just so happens the Deathkula are planning to attack. Bill fends off the Deathkula scouts and oh, so she's that kind of girl, huh? He probably should have kept the blonde from the skiing episode. That night, the village has been fortified and everyone prepares for a battle. Joanne keeps nagging about gun control, but she is forced to shoot a Deathkula to save a kid, and completely blue screens. When the Deathkula return with bigger guns, the Bismarck arrives to save everyone. Before leaving, Bill sneaks a little kiss. This was kept on the American version, surprisingly enough. On this American-made episode, an old-timey western town and an old-timey American Indian tribe become increasingly hostile. When some cowboys claim to have been attacked on the road, they capture an Indian and throw him in jail. With tensions rising, the chief uses his Nokia phone to call Saber Rider.
Trouble isn't serious, Chief.
I'm afraid it is. There is a range war brewing. You're the...
A what war now? Oh, range war, which is a legit term even if I'm not sure it applies here. But between you and me, race war would have been funnier. Saber manages to make both sides stand down for now. However, Spotted Calf is busted out of jail by Outriders in disguise. The boys hurry to stop the fighting, while April manages to find the secret Outrider base, where everybody's favorite character Banquo is leading the bad guys. In an attempt to buy time, Saber duels his blood brother. Yeah, apparently he spent part of his youth with the tribe, but they don't really explain things very well. April shows up in the nick of time with a Spotted Calf and tries to solve the conflict. And she also points to the town being on fire, even if it's in plain view for everyone and nobody realized until now. Anyway, both cowboys and Indians join forces to kick the Outriders out and we have a nice happy ending. A religious leader has started predicting earthquakes and is trying to manipulate an entire town. But in the American version, he is a traveling magician, and of course every religion reference or symbology is removed as best as they can. A couple of villagers go to ask for help, but instead of just asking, they point a gun to the hero's back, which makes zero sense. After confronting the priest, Marianne is sent to sneak around and she discovers a mining operation by the Deadcula. Shinji is shot by the priest, but a small arms fire just bounces off his armor. Then the priest returns with a freaking sniper rifle, but gets caught monologuing. This is yet another American-made episode, and we are sticking to the space western theme, but with almost none of the space part. The town's sheriff has been kicked out, probably because of his awful voice.
What are you gonna do to me?
And he coincidentally wanders right towards Saber Rider. As it seems to be the formula for these episodes, Colt and Fireball are sidelined. And April and Saber go into town with silly disguises, and by acting like a silly old man, he gets declared town sheriff by the bad guys. April and Saber quickly find a secret factory that is creating fake gold. Oh, Banquo is here! After almost getting captured, they decide to just let Colt waste time gathering fake gold. And Colt great balls of fire over here instead to pose as an abrasive. When the town is informed about the fake gold, there's a brief shootout. The evil bearded guy just self-vaporizes and wonders out loud that his allies are going to wander into a trap, but does nothing to warn them. When the Outriders arrive at town, they get taken down by non-lethal Home Alone traps. Banquo and Saber have a fistfight, but my boy self-vaporizes as soon as he can. Before we end the episode, we must take a few moments to make fun of Colt. In this episode, the Deadcula managed to plant a bomb during an important political meeting by using a human agent. But when they try to dispose of him, the Bismark team interrupts. The remaining Deadcula attempts to assassinate the agent in the hospital, but falls into Shinji's trap, and at the end he self-explodes. The human agent wakes up, but he has amnesia. Marianne tends to him, Richard tries to find the bomb, and Bill and Shinji fight a giant mecha that just showed up. Eventually the agent recovers his memory. His family died during a battle between the Deadcula and the Federation, and that made him become an anti-government activist. Marianne and him have a very dense intellectual political debate to make him reconsider and give the location of the bomb. Nah, I'm just kidding, she threatens him with a really big gun. That's my girl. Finally, here is the first Japan-only episode. While alone in the city, Shinji runs into a guerrilla group fighting the local army. He tries to ignore it, but a young girl suddenly runs up to him asking for help. Then we have a very funny scene of Shinji fighting human soldiers. You see, technically they are both the good guys, so they are forced to play this silly game of shoot the gun, not the person, which supports my earlier point that this series was already tame enough before American intervention. Shinji doesn't lie about who he is, but he gets dragged into the rebels' hideout anyway. Once inside, they don't let him leave. He and the girl, Bella, overhear the guerrillas' plan to steal important military software, and this causes her to quit the group and join Shinji. But in a big twist, it was all a plan to get Bella inside the facility. She spends some time with the Bismark team, but as soon as they leave, she calls her boss. While the Bismark team is stuck repeating animations from all episodes, the girls manage to successfully steal the disc. Shinji lives in the middle of a giant mecha fight to try and intercept them, but sadly the girls' deal with the Deadcula don't go as planned. Bella dies after saying sorry. Then Shinji's plot armor kicks in again and he takes out his anger on a non-generic Deadcula. After, he returns to finish the fight with the giant mecha and have a nice ending. Wait, did he just leave the corpses in the middle of the desert? While the Bismarck team is assigned to protect a new military installation, a new circus made entirely of robots arrives in town and causes the original circus to lose the audience. Richard befriends one of the circus performers, but sadly it seems she already has a boyfriend. When the boyfriend goes to the robot circus to spy on them, he discovers that it's run by Deadcula. Meanwhile, Richard ropes the rest of the boys into becoming circus performers for the night. Eventually, the Deadcula reveal their new mecha and the Bismarck wins by using a questionable circus maneuver. In both versions, the episode ends with Richard staring at the circus couple, stone-faced. Did he like her or not? I guess we'll never know. Before a big race event takes place, a girl attempts to bribe Shinji to quit, but he refuses. Nearby, a few racers dressed in black were planning to shoot him, but they back off for now. The mystery girl sends a letter inviting Shinji to dinner and he accepts, which makes Marianne very jealous. But to make the story shorter, we find out two things. The black racers are Deadcula and the girl's father is Black Thunder, one of Shinji's racing idols. During the race, Shinji and Black Thunder team up to run all the Deadcula cars out of the road before they reach the objective they want to destroy. This whole sequence left me wondering why is it allowed by the race to kill other contestants or why both sides never shoot at each other. We know they have weapons. But I guess I'm thinking too much again. Shinji and Black Thunder are the only survivors and decide to finish the race by themselves. The episode wraps up with both characters shaking hands. This is another of the Japanese exclusive episodes. The Bismarck team must go to space to investigate possible Deadcula activity on a passing comet, but their only source of information is a very literal space pirate named Holiday. You can tell that this episode probably got discarded from America, but for excess amounts of alcohol and because Holiday's crew is two very familiar robots.
I think George Lucas gonna sue somebody.
And it's kind of a shame as I found this episode to be refreshing and a little bit different, as it focuses more on Holiday himself and Shinji being the only one that believes that he can do the right thing. Even the robots stop being cheaty at the end. I thought it was a cute episode, even if I don't feel like going through all the plot bit by bit. A Deadcula spy is shot down trying to escape a military facility and is presumed dead. The next day, the Bismarck team is enjoying a lazy morning. Richard saves a girl from a snake, and this is the second time he meets a woman like this. The circus episode was the same. Are we sure he's not letting poisonous creatures free just to meet women? Anyway, the spy from the beginning suddenly shows up, but the guys capture him alive. Coincidentally, the girl from earlier called Cynthia shows up to ask for supplies for her orphanage. The Bismarck team goes for a visit, but things turn bad when some Deadcula kidnap children to set up a hostage exchange. Long story short, they save the hostages, even though everybody should be dead. Also, this time they destroyed the giant mecha without using the Bismarck, which is kind of lame. It was a cool design too. The episode closes with Richard giving Cynthia his book of poems in a romantic gesture. Again with the stone-faced man, it's love, smile a little. The American version cuts things like violence against children but keeps the romance subplot mostly the same. In this episode, the Deadcula have been attacking radar stations all over Ganymede, and that makes the team think something big is coming up. They decide to capture one of their ships to attempt to crack their communications. Soon enough, they manage to shoot one down and capture a prisoner alive, and while interrogating him, we see Bill lose control for the first time about his parents being killed by Deadcula. We're almost halfway through the show, better late than never for a bit of character motivation, I guess. A suspicious old man wanders into the forest, distracting the guys, and just a few seconds later, a Deadcula squad comes to destroy the ship and kill the soldier. The very next day, the suspicious old man shows up at the military base with some machine parts that will be useful to the Bismarck team. In the most obvious twist of all time, this leads the Bismarck team right into a trap, and to be completely honest, I couldn't hold back my anger when the enemy mech just fumbled the win in the dumbest way possible. Gatler escapes, but we will see him again very soon. The episode starts with a rare look at life on the Dead Kula planet. Things are looking bad, so Gyusa makes Gatler accelerate their plans to start a full-scale invasion as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on Earth, Marian's dad convinces the politicians to send a fleet to counter the incoming invasion. In Ganymede, the Dead Kula are attacking the capital city. While General Dom's defends it, the Bismarck team must go and destroy the supplies in Gatler's main base. When the Bismarck arrives, there's a 3v1 giant mega fight. It's pretty fun, but it's too bad all the models are recycled. After that, and for some arbitrary reason, the boys infiltrate the base in stealth mode. They successfully blow up most of the energy containers, and Shinji intercepts Gatler for one final Western-style duel.
What you say? Oh, that you only meant when.
Gatler's death and the arrival of Earth's fleet signals Gyusa to retreat in what seems a final defeat for the Dead Kula forces. The end of this episode marks a clear halfway point for the series, so I'm going to take advantage of that and split my video into two as well. Do all the YouTube things that you want, I always appreciate a sub or views on my older videos. Anyway, see you on the next one.